I don't normally volunteer right away because I know like people from Athens have heard my testimony a million times. But it begins with like I was pretty much born Methodist, so all of my family had always attended church, and I got taken to church as a young kid. And my mom kind of introduced me to what I thought a Christian was, somebody who participates in their church. So she would count the tithes after our church services. And so when I was young, I got involved. I met Nikki in children's choir in that church. And we went on to become vice president and president of the youth group. And at one point in time, we were the only two people in our Sunday school class. Like nobody else in our grade was interested in coming. And you were supposed to call your friends up and invite them to your church, which was mortifying. I didn't want to do that because it was just church. So it was one of those, it was kind of a dying church because there was no real youth there. Everybody was in the older brackets, if I can put that politely, and everyone sat in the same seats. And there was like a time of fellowship in the service where you would get up and shake hands, and it was always with the same people. So it was boring, but I was used to it. I mean, there's a method. The method became really boring, but everybody, participated in it. So because I was raised that way and I knew the biblical stories, I just never really had any reason to doubt God. I would pray. I would pray in school, not in school, but I would pray about school, and I would see the Lord coming through and doing stuff for me. So I had some faith, and it wasn't until I reached high school and my parents sat my brother and I down and said that they were getting divorced, and that was a big blow. Divorce is something that happens and it's kind of regular, but for my family, all of my aunts had gotten divorced, but my mom and dad were the ones that were considered like rock, they were going to stick together. So they were married 19 years before they announced that. So it was a big shock. And it kind of threw me for a loop. I was just going into high school. My brother was graduating from high school. So I was kind of left in the mix and really struggling for a hold. And so what I did was I went back to my Bible because that's what I was taught about. And I looked and saw all these wonderful verses, but I couldn't apply them. I didn't know why I was so depressed and so hopeless. And after a while, I was like, okay, I just don't know what I'm doing. Don't know. So I consciously made the decision to go into the world and try my hand to feel better in that way. So I would party, I would do everything I could, but at the beginning of the week, I was still with myself and still dealing with the same stuff I'd always dealt with, so pretty miserable. And that was my high school existence. I was miserable. I'm not a very pleasant person normally. I'm a very, very negative person, so it was extra hard. Even when I'm not going through depression, I'm not like bright and shiny optimist. But Nikki hung on as my friend that whole time. And after we graduated, I took a year off because I just couldn't handle anything else mentally, and she went away to college. So she calls me up during that year away and asked me what I needed to do to be saved. And I thought, just be a good person and believe in Jesus and God, and that's what I thought you did. And she said, no, you have to do more. And that's the first time I heard it. All my years in church, no one ever told me I had to do more than just believe. But then Nikki got in contact with Pastor Dave from Fresno, and he flew out to Nikki and sat down in the living room of her grandparents, and it was all her family there, and me, her best friend, Chris, her boyfriend at the time, and Pastor Dave just opened the Bible. And he just, read out of the Bible, particularly in Acts 2. And when he read Acts 2, I feel like they never read that in church. Like, I don't ever remember them reading any part of Acts. We went through, the Gospels. So when he read that, I was immediately convicted. Just immediately, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the missing piece. That's what I wasn't shown in all my years of going to church. So everybody had gotten down on their knees to pray at that moment, and I wouldn't open my mouth because I was worried I was actually going to receive right then and there, and I needed mentally some time to process, because that's my whole life. I want to say lied to. A lot of people didn't know any better either. They were just repeating stuff, but it was a big paradigm shift, as someone I love often said. So I was trying to suss out how my life was going to change. It was over the summer. Nikki and Chris had gotten baptized when Pastor Dave was there, but I didn't do that because I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready, and I really was trying to get a grip on this. I asked my boyfriend at the time what he thought, just put out some verses, asked my mom what she thought, and they didn't really have anything substantive to tell me, nothing additional. So at the end of the summer, and I was due to go to college myself, the day before, Pastor Dave and Alice had come back to visit Nikki and Chris, who had received the Spirit in Fresno, and they asked me if I had my bathing suit, kind of joking because I hadn't gotten baptized before, and I said no, but I can get it. So I got baptized that night in their hotel pool, and Nikki and Chris had gotten the spa, so I got a raw deal there, sorry. But anyway, I came up out of the waters of baptism, and for me it was weird. I'm a conservative person. I don't like a lot of touching, so they're putting hands on me, and it was a new thing, and I was praying, I was ready, but I was a bit weirded out, I guess, by the whole process. So the next day I packed all my stuff up, moved out to college. I was supposed to have a roommate. The Lord made it so I didn't have a roommate. It was just me in a room in a brand new place. So I had no excuses. When everybody left, I got down on my knees, I prayed, and within a few minutes my tongue started to change and I was speaking in tongues. And it was so incredible because I had been under this weight of depression for so long, and finally it lifted up off of me. And I'd always wondered if I was being good enough, and I'd finally known it. Finally, it was clear as day to me that I was finally good enough. Like, I knew what track I should be walking. And so that was 19 years ago. We'll be 20 in August, and it's been quite a ride. We started out in Pennsylvania and ended up getting married, moving down to Georgia, and now the Pennsylvania crew is in Georgia. So it's great, and I've really needed the Lord's help because my kids have thrown me for a loop. I don't know how anybody did it without the Spirit, but the Lord's helped me through a bunch of trials, and most of my trials, they haven't been physical or nothing very seen to other people, but they're mental, and they're Lord's breaking me down and rebuilding me and helping me. And the bottom line is that there's nowhere else to go. I had tried it all, I had done it all, and now the world's scaring me. So I'm really thankful that I'm in the Lord's grasp, and that I know my calling, I know my salvation's secure. So now everybody else has to do. So praise the Lord.